Y'all, those last 3 weeks before the summit, once I started fasting, the warfare, it just ratcheted up. We got people going to the ER. We have people who are struggling with mental disturbances. I no longer have childcare for my kids. I mean, y'all. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Prolific Collective podcast. It's yours truly, Dr. Yenny, and I'm so happy that you're joining us today. I feel like, when I take a couple weeks off of recording, I'm always a little bit rusty coming back, but I'm so excited to be here again. And if you haven't already heard, Happy New Year. Happy New Year, everybody. Can't believe, I feel like the break that we took went by so fast because we basically took a break right before the holidays and then came right back into prep for the Healing Summit. I shared a little bit about the summit prior to our break, and today's episode is really just reflecting on the moments or the things that led up to the summit and kind of like how it happened and what happened. And I just feel like this is such an important episode. I'm literally recording this just 3 days after the summit. I had a feeling, I was like, I need to make sure that I record after the summit because I want all the processing to happen as soon as possible. So this episode is going to get into all of the things that we kind of dealt with prior to my team and I, and just some reflections that I believe that God has kind of just opened me up to in even the weeks and the days going up to it. So if you're not already subscribed to this channel, what are you doing, sis? Come on, hun. Go ahead and subscribe and make sure that you're following us on all platforms. And if you've been listening for a while, go ahead and leave us a review on the podcast app that you are, or the platform that you listen to. Really hoping to grow this podcast this year and would love to carry you along and make sure that you're sharing this with your friends, hitting that notification button so that you are going to be in the know when we drop episodes, which at this point is weekly. So without further ado, let's talk about all things Healing Summit and what the heck did God do in that room? All right, y'all. So up until now, I've kind of like hinted at the Healing Summit, what it was, but I feel like I owe you guys an explanation and some context. So for most of you, you know that I'm a pelvic core therapist. I specialize in fertility and reproductive issues professionally. But about a year ago, the Lord laid it on my heart to essentially host an event. That's what I thought, at least, was to host an event that bridges the gap between women's health and faith. And I can't even equate like when I got that first idea versus how it came together, I just cannot believe that it was the same idea. But I felt like God just planted the seed and he just wanted me to just like steward it. And I felt like as I just gave God my yes initially to plan an event, everything that followed it was just absolutely mind-blowing. So like the first thing that happened pretty early on in the process was just coming to realization that, when you want to host an event of that magnitude, you need to be either a corporation or an organization of some sort. And so quickly realizing that, God wasn't just setting it up for me to host an event, but was for me to start a movement, start an organization. And so within like the first month, I remember just having to realize, like, I think I'm skipping an important part, but I'm gonna get back to it. I think when I met with our team the first time, I realized like we're going to have to make this a not-for-profit or some level of organization. And so I remember going to the Lord about it and praying and just asking God, okay, if this is what you're gonna have me do, I want you to name it. I want you to make it clear. And the Lord gave me the word prolific. Now, I ain't gonna hold you. I haven't heard the word prolific used often. I think, to be honest, I've only heard it like maybe once in like a rap song. I think it was like a Nipsey Hussle record, like I'm prolific, just some real random. So I was like, what does prolific mean? And I went down a rabbit hole of research and I found out that prolific actually means to be fruitful, right? It's a description of someone that exhibits fruitfulness, and not just any type of fruitfulness, but if you think about the word proliferate, it means that the type of fruitfulness literally goes beyond the boundaries, beyond bounds, and it can infiltrate different sectors. And so thinking about that word, I'm like, man, God, I feel like God has really given us a powerful word here to call this. But whatever this is, I wasn't sure at the time. It just knew that I had to call whatever this and whatever God was doing prolific. And in that same season, the Lord allowed an old friend of mine and I to reconnect. We had a bit of a falling out about a year and a half prior to, and the Lord reconciled our relationship. And one of the first things that she told me was, hey, I saw that that you started a movement called the Prolific Collective. My word of the year of 2024 is prolific. And up until this point, I hadn't had a release yet of like a scripture to back it up or any biblical context. I just had the word prolific, right? And she began to lay out to me all of the revelation that God had given her about the word prolific and the scripture. And it was in John chapter 15, verses 1-17. And when I tell you, it's just like, when you give just God one yes, the way he just continues to continue to reveal just the different birthings and the different points. It's almost like you take one step and then he gives you like the way to take several other steps. It blew my mind that what are the odds of me reconnecting with an old friend, the Lord restoring our relationship, and that person literally having the next step of revelation that I needed to put together this vision that God was putting in me. So it was like we had the name, we had the revelation of the name, and then we had the scriptural and biblical backing of the name, and mind blowing. And so in that same season, I remember when I gave God my yes, that, okay, Lord, I will do this event. I will do a event. I'm not sure. But the Lord made it very clear to me that, I'm not just going to be sending you to do an event on your own. I'm going to send you help. And it's funny because I think at the end of 2023, even going into 2024, my husband and I had been receiving a lot of words and a lot of confirmation that help was on the way. And honestly, whenever God sends you a word about help, it just really means that you're probably about to walk into a season of a lot of high responsibility that requires a lot of high output, because why else would you need help, right? And so we were already kind of just like asking the Lord, what is it that we're going to need help for? And, when the Lord gave me the word about what to do with the event, he started to give it to me in a clear way. Like, I want you to call this person, this person, this person, this person, because this is going to be your team. Now, some of the people that the Lord was telling me to call, I know that, they do marketing for a living and get paid for it. They do event planning for a living and get paid for it. I'm like, I don't even have a budget to fund this. Like, God, how is this all going to be put together? But the Lord just said, go ahead, call them, put them together in a meeting and see what happens. And we had our first meeting in the early spring of 2024. I told them a rough measure of the vision. They simultaneously all said yes, agreed to come on this. And the 7 of us started the work of the Prolific Collective and the planning of the Healing Summit. And I'm even getting chills just thinking about it, because just thinking about me, I think at the time I was like around 4 or 5 months pregnant with my daughter. I was pregnant with a vision, pregnant with a human being, my first daughter, my second child, and also seeing God just beginning to align everything. But I think what really was important for me to just kind of hold space for was just like what happened afterwards. Because for me, I've been in ministry in some level or some way my whole life. Like, I'm a church girl, so I'm used to planning events. I'm used to having to put together church programs. But it was very it was very clear to me early on that I wasn't just going to be planning some event, and that the Lord needed me to be responsible for the spiritual growth and the spiritual temperature of this movement, and for me to entrust the people that he had called for the operational. And as somebody who is type A and who is a stickler about perfection, that is a big deal. All right. For me to not be at the front seat of all things operations was hard, but I knew that was because the Lord was trying to do something that required a lot of spiritual heavy lifting, and that he knew that my natural inclination was going to be to step into the planning mode and not to devote all this time into spiritual mode. And I'm so glad that he gave me that word ahead. And that's the thing about God, right? Is if you really listen to what he says and not what you think he's saying, but what he's actually saying, he's going to be giving you the specifics of what you'll need. And so as I had these people, I said, hey, this is what we're going to do. Called our accountant, we incorporated it, or called my accountant, incorporated the organization, or made it a nonprofit. This is how we're going to do it. And then I just went into my prayer closet. I'm not going to hold you. It was we got the name, we got the date, the idea of what we were going to do. At the time, we had another date in mind. And then it was just going to my prayer closet. And it was almost as if the moment I decided to fully devote myself into being completely spiritual about this, the Lord began to clarify the call, clarify the assignment. It was like all of a sudden, it was very clear to me that this wasn't just some health event. This was going to be a place of encounter, a place of purpose, a place of commissioning. And my spiritual growth and my hunger for God began to match and draw me closer to the details and the intricacies of the different women that were going to be attracted to, or that are even attracted to this movement. And everything just started to align. And, I'm at this point, have my daughter in the summer. And even in those weeks of postpartum and recovery, the Lord is still revealing so much. The Lord is talking to me. The Lord is clarifying. The Lord is saying, this is the messaging I want you to use. This is how I want you to communicate. Like, I'm literally receiving so much revelation, so much download, to the point that it's happening at such a fast rate that it was so clear to me early on that this is actually his thing. Like, it's almost as if like God just needed me to give him my yes, just to implement his full will. And so it was so clear that all of these things were starting to align. But I think for me, as we were getting closer and closer, the spiritual temperature and the weight of what we were going to do became clear. I mean, we started praying about the region. We started getting revelation about what was going on, in the city, in the nation. And at the same time, we have an election. We have the first or the second Black female to ever run for president running. She's a close contender. And it's like the temperature of women's issues is changing in this country. Like, we are no longer we are positioned to do something. We're positioned to speak in a different tonation and to carry a different weight. And so that's when the Lord put it on my heart to have a team of just prayer warriors. They're intercessors, and they're called the prolific midwives, that literally outside of the planning team are the engine room to literally pray this thing into fruition, right? And so I remember gathering up another group of women who, by the grace of God, also said yes, who started meeting on a weekly basis, in addition to my other team meeting on a weekly basis. So we are like interceding multiple times a week. We are in our word. We are we're doing spiritual mapping. We are doing the heavy lifting. And that is how God began to call us higher. And there's something about when you release the plans, the agenda, and you start to allow God to call you higher, that he begins to give you like such spiritual clarity. And he starts to take the limits off of your understanding and activate some deeper things inside of you. And that's what was happening. And so at the end of the year, it was very clear to me that we were going into the enemy's camp, and we were literally going to be rescuing women out of generational issues, bloodline problems, spiritual warfare. I mean, you name it, there was going to be some deep work, and that the Prolific Collective was not just going to do physical healing and was not just going to enlighten women, but was going to restore bloodlines, right? Or is going to restore bloodlines, and is also commissioning and positioning women in areas of influence to do the work of the Lord, right? And also going to be setting women up to be in wealthy places. The scripture tells us that the wealth of the wicked belongs to the righteous, that the Lord was going to be redeeming women who had been poverty stricken, who have been experiencing all forms of brokenness, into a place of deep influence. Y'all, it got real. And so there you have it. We're getting all this clarity. And then for whatever reason, as the enemy would have it, even though we had prayed against the works of the enemy, we were aware that he was going to come through. Y'all, those last 3 weeks before the summit, y'all, when I tell you the amount of warfare that happened, that was when it was aware to me. So my team and everyone that was in the background praying. So at this point, we have about 11 women total who are interceding, right? We're meeting at this point now, interceding, and multiple times a week. And the whole team is fasting the week of the summit. I did a 21-day fast. And so it's like, once I started fasting, I felt like the warfare, that it just ratcheted up. That's the only way I could describe it, right? People on the team getting sick. I mean, we got people going to the ER multiple times a week. We have people who are struggling with mental disturbances, you name it. I'm struggling. I'm feeling fatigued. I remember we had childcare that was set for our family. childcare fell through. So in the crucial time of preparation, just a couple weeks before I no longer have childcare for my kids, I mean, y'all, there was nothing the enemy didn't use, right? It was like anyone or anything that was left available, the enemy was going to try to form a form of discouragement. Even up until the last week, it was like so heavy. I mean, I suddenly got like horrible flu, congestion. I mean, I barely had a voice. We're at this point praying every day. And I'm over here on a prayer line. People are scared, like, Dr. Yanni, you don't sound like yourself. I'm like, baby, like we done made the devil big mad. Like, he has gotten in my sinuses. Like, it was so much warfare. But I read something about a year ago that just holds on to me. It's like, you know, resistance or oppression is a prophetic indicator of potential. Like, you don't know that you are literally about to achieve such great purpose if the enemy isn't this irritated, if he is not sending this much signal. It's like he is just sending his minions on assignment. And I remember even like the week before, my husband was like, we need to like actually add more prayer to this. So we're getting up at like 4 a.m. praying. I'm praying with the other team daily. I'm praying myself. I mean, we are just like fortifying this. People getting sick, like I said, and even till the last minute, like we had one of our guests drop out on us. Something happened. She had an emergency, couldn't come. We had, the day of the event, my makeup artist, she said the Lord told her a day before, this is why you need to make sure that when you're doing God's things, that you are surrounding yourself with people who are spiritually mature, because I told God, I'm not doing this without people who are fortified in the spirit. Like, I can't just be having the enemy just using somebody like the makeup artist. And side note, even like a week or and a half prior to the event, I had a dream that like I woke up late, didn't have my makeup done, hair done. So I knew like it was going to be some last minute type of stuff that the enemy was going to use. So I started praying about that. But I remember my makeup artist, she called the morning of, literally I'm leaving the hotel, getting to the venue, and she's supposed to meet me there. My glam is supposed to start. And she's saying that her tire blew out. She said the day before that the Lord had told her to anoint her car and just to pray over her car, and that she did it. And she said she was 20 minutes into her drive. Her drive is about 50 minutes and her tire blew out. Meanwhile, the way that God had it was that she left early enough where she would have been about 30 to 45 minutes early for her call time. So her tire's blown out. And, you know, I had such level of calm. Like I don't know what it was. It was just like God had just given me this peace, because I knew that the enemy was going to try to use anything to distract us, right? And to just try to make me get frazzled. And I just didn't have it. I wasn't frazzled. I just had peace. And I literally was just like, okay, no problem. And she's like, but don't worry, my mom's on my way. I'm good. She was figuring out with AAA, like it was a whole other thing. One of the intercessors that was supposed to pray over the auditorium, her car suddenly had issues on the way there. It was one thing at the other. Another person on the team, random issue on the way there. So I began to I'm literally sitting there in my dressing room. The event is about to start in like an hour, 15 minutes. I don't have my makeup done. My team ain't fully there. The intercessors aren't present. The venue doing weird things. The music ain't working in the lobby. And you know what I did, y'all? I just picked up my phone and I just put on my worship playlist and I just began to pray and I began to worship God. And I'm not kidding, within 15 minutes, the makeup artist arrived. The music started working, right? The intercessor arrived and my team was all in alignment. And it was just like the Lord just allowed me to have that confidence to arrest this situation. And I think when I remember listening to, I forget, someone a couple of months back, they were doing a major event in a city and, you know, they were reflecting on the level of warfare they dealt. And I remember thinking that I thank God that he had sent that podcast episode for me to listen to ahead of time, because I sensed that I would probably be dealing with similar issues. It was even down to the fact that the Lord had given me the word to preach that day and had given me like the points and everything. And like the week of, I was fuzzy. I couldn't figure it out, couldn't flesh out my notes, couldn't clarify. This is like, maybe it only happened once or twice in my life where I was really struggling to clarify a sermon. But this one felt so it felt so bad. Like, it was like, I remember even my husband often helps me prep, and I'm literally like using him as my sounding board. And he's like, he's struggling too. And it was weird because he's giving me points. It's not fleshing out. And it was like, this is spiritual. God is testing my reliance on him, one, but this is also just like the devil really trying to like irritate me, right? Even in my prep. And it wasn't until like 10 p.m. the night before that like the main point was fleshed out. I'm just telling you, like, the God of the 11th hour just came through to put everything together. And so the summit happens. It is incredible. When I say it exceeded our preparation, our expectations, but we knew that God would show up and show out. And like, when I just think about the amount of just tangible healing, like even now, it's only been a couple of days and we're receiving testimonies and we're receiving an outpouring of words and people saying, I'm feeling healing already. I'm about to go to the doctor's office and I know my labs are going to be normal. I've already received my baby. I know that this infertility is healed. I mean, we're receiving it and people are already showing. I mean, there was one girl that reached out to us saying, I've had this leg pain for, all this time. And I literally walked in with that pain and walked out, didn't have it. Like, it's so much alignment and so much clarity. And it was just like, this is why the warfare was so real, because we shook something. Like, God used us to shift something in the earth. And, we're never going to be the same. And one thing that I'm just so grateful for, and it is not lost upon me, that yes, I gave God my yes. Yes, I stewarded it, but it wasn't me. He could have really used anybody, but God did use me. And I'm so humbled, and I'm so, like, when I mean this from the depth of my heart, I think I told God, probably even just before the event, like, the fact that you would even just ask me to do this, you forever have my yes. Like, you forever have my reverence. It's always going to be, I'm always going to give you the glory. I'm always going to point it back to you. I'm always going to clarify who's the engine room behind this, right? It is always you. And, I really know that the best is yet to come. And so I was sharing with someone that, like, one thing I told God is, like, I wasn't really sure whether or not it was going to be annual. I know when I say it out loud, it sounds crazy, but like, it was almost like, it was like, let's just see how this first one goes. Like, let's just birth this vision and see what happens. And like, I knew in my spirit, I sense in my spirit that once we are on the other side of this, I'm going to know what to do next. It's going to be clear. And it was so clear to me that not only this is going to be an annual thing, but that, things like this podcast, it is here to stay. Things like doing more activations and more things for the kingdom, and really bridging that gap between the marketplace in the kingdom and bringing it all together in a way that is authentic and in a way that is godly, is here to stay. And so the best is yet to come. I'm so excited. I'm so thrilled to see all that God is going to do. And so we just stuck now, y'all. Like, it's real. We here to stay. The Prolific Collective is literally here to stay. So stay tuned on the podcast. Like I said, we back to our weekly episodes, and I think that we're going to explore a lot of conversations. There were a lot of questions that we didn't get to answer at the summit that I'm going to have some fun here answering, and hopefully we'll have some guests here that can help us to answer those questions as well. But y'all share this. Like, God is doing something through this ministry, through this movement that is beyond me, is beyond my understanding. And I just believe that literally it is here to fill such a unique gap in the world. And so stick around. It's about to get real good. And I see y'all next time on the next episode of the Prolific Collective podcast. Take care, y'all. Bye.